I have to get you to turn your mute on. Everybody, to our regular council meeting. I will read the resolution to open the meeting. Be it resolved that the meeting be called to order and that the agenda for the meeting be adopted as circulated. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Link, seconded Councillor Prague. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. Thank you. We have no addendums for the meeting tonight. I will read the opening remarks before we get going. The Arm of West St. Paul strives to be a safe and inclusive community that residents are proud to call home, where diversity is embraced, the environment is cared for, and leadership is valued and trusted. The West St. Paul Council is committed to working as a team to provide good governance, safe and reliable infrastructure, recreational facilities, and outdoor spaces that the community can enjoy in a sustainable way that values the environment and is financially prudent. Thank you. Right. We have one public hearing for this evening, and I will read the resolution to open the public hearing. Be it resolved that this meeting of council recess for the purpose of holding a public hearing pursuant to section 105 of the Planning Act. Can I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Prague, seconded Councillor Link. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. Thank you. Mr. Planner, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just noticing that haven't been enabled to share my screen. So if your administration can enable me to share the screen, I can get underway here. Perfect. Thank you very much. So the first application before council this evening is conditional use number 7 of 2021. This is to allow a business consisting of the sale and servicing of equipment used in the environmental, utility, underground, and recycling industries on the properties at 1105 and 1123 Capitalist Drive, which are Zone CH Commercial Highway. Now, the applicant has applied under the use category of commercial use not listed. Our office has taken the position that this is more properly categorized as an industrial use as opposed to a commercial use, specifically a heavy equipment sales and service use, which would mean that the commercial use category being applied for is not the appropriate category. As a result, we are recommending rejection of this application. I'm going to speak a little bit more about that towards the end of the presentation, but first, I'm going to provide a brief overview of the applicant's proposal and the subject properties. So as you can see by the map before you, the properties, there are 2 of them that are encompassed by this application. So they're vacant. They are under common ownership. Each is approximately 1.7 acres in size for a total of 3.4 acres. Now, the aerial photography you see here is about 10 years old, so it is out of date. The property directly to the north is undeveloped, though, so it's current in that sense. So that's an undeveloped commercial property to the north. To the south, though, that property has been developed with a building that houses a contractor's establishment, and council did approve outdoor storage related to that contractor's establishment in November of last year. To the east is property that is zoned to allow for residential development. So that's the RS Service Residential Zone in the brown color, again, just to the east of the subject properties. Of course, to the west is Capitalist Drive. So the applicant is proposing to construct a building that would consist of an office, showroom, and service area with the overhead doors that you can see in their rendering to the rear of the photo. The building would be approximately 14,000 square feet, just over 14,000 square feet, with the majority of this on the main floor. There's about 2,000 square feet that would be office area on the partial second floor. Additionally, as you can see on the applicant's site plan, that's a 3D site plan here, the applicant's proposing an outdoor storage area that would be enclosed with 6-foot-high chain link fencing, augmented by black mesh to meet screening requirements. As you may recall, any outdoor storage must be enclosed by fencing that's opaque. So the outdoor storage area would be for equipment that the business sells and services. They're also proposing landscaping to the rear of the property. First, just another site plan, a top-down view that the applicant has provided. Again, just shows the location of the building. And again, I want to point out these are currently two separate properties, so the applicant wouldn't have to consolidate them prior to our office being able to issue a building permit for that proposed building. So as I mentioned, the applicant is proposing landscaping as well. So if you look at the rear property line to the right of the image, that's the property line that is adjacent to the residential zoned properties I mentioned earlier. They are proposing a row of trees that they've indicated would fully screen the adjacent residentially zoned land from the subject properties and the use that is being proposed. The applicants also provided some photos and examples of the types of equipment that they would be storing on the property and servicing and selling. They've indicated the majority of the equipment does not have a height that exceeds 6 feet, and again, that 6 feet is the height of the fencing that they are proposing. But again, they indicated a majority of the equipment does not have 6 feet, so it wouldn't preclude equipment that's larger than 6 feet. The applicants also noted that the examples given and the examples before council on the screen now do not represent the full spectrum of equipment that the business would sell and service and store. So council should keep in mind that unless conditions were added, for example, to limit the types of equipment, these should just be considered examples and not the full range of the types of equipment that they would be storing on the property. The applicants also provided a photo of their existing location in Winnipeg, and as you can see, there is an outdoor storage area with some equipment similar to the storage area that they are proposing on the subject properties. These photos before you now, I took earlier this week. So the photo on the top is looking northeast generally. You can see the RM's Public Works yard in the distance. There is as I mentioned earlier, a vacant commercial property between the subject properties and the RM Public Works yard. The photo on the bottom is looking generally southeast, and I should mention both these photos taken from Capitalist Drive. So the photo on the bottom does show that building housing the contractor's establishment directly adjacent to the south to the subject properties. You can see the outdoor storage area to the rear of that building in that photo on the bottom. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the business that's being proposed consists of the sale and servicing of equipment used in the environmental, utility, underground, and recycling industries. So the first decision that council needs to make is whether this is an industrial use, as our office is recommending, or whether this can be considered as a commercial use. I do want to make clear that in the zoning bylaw, there are no definitions for industrial, commercial, or heavy equipment uses. In that case, where there are no specific definitions in the zoning bylaw, the bylaw states that terms should be given their usual and customary meaning. So when we talk about commercial industrial uses as well as heavy equipment, again, they're not defined specifically in the bylaw. The terms would be given their usual and customary meaning as per the zoning bylaw. So our office's interpretation is that this is an industrial use. More specifically, that's a heavy equipment sales and service use. Again, heavy equipment not defined, but we would consider the usual and customary meaning to be generally equipment that's used in construction and related industries, such as the environmental, utility, underground, and recycling industries that the applicant has mentioned. If council agrees with this interpretation, then the proposed use would not comply with the zoning bylaw, nor would it comply with the development plan or secondary plan, and therefore our office is recommending the application be rejected because it does not meet the criteria outlined in the Planning Act. Now, As I mentioned, the applicant is proposing this to be considered as a commercial use. And I should mention that they are, of course, entitled to disagree with our office's interpretation and apply under any use category they deem appropriate, which of course is what they have done and why this application has come before council this evening. So our office is obligated to bring any application before council that's submitted to our office, regardless of our interpretation of what use category is most appropriate. So the applicant has applied to have this considered as a commercial use. If council believes it's reasonable to consider this as a commercial use, then like any other conditional use application, the council must determine whether they believe it meets the criteria listed in the Planning Act, Section 106(1). Those criteria are listed in my report, but I'll just briefly review them now. So council can approve the application if the conditional use proposed in the application, one, will be compatible with the general nature of the surrounding area. Two, will not be detrimental to the health or general welfare of people living or working in the surrounding area, or negatively affect other properties or potential development in the surrounding area. And three, is generally consistent with the applicable provisions of the development plan bylaw, the zoning bylaw, and any secondary plan bylaw. And of course, council can add any conditions they deem necessary to ensure that the proposed use meets those criteria. For example, limiting the type of equipment that would be permitted on the property, and or the location and extent of the proposed outdoor storage. So just to briefly review the information on the screen before you now, council has essentially two decisions to make in reviewing this application. The first is council comfortable considering this as a commercial use? And the second, if the answer is yes, then the second decision is, does the proposed use meet the criteria that I just listed as outlined in the Planning Act? If yes, then council is in a position to approve the application. If no, then council, as per the Planning Act, should reject the application. And again, our office is recommending that this be rejected because we do consider this an industrial use, and more specifically, heavy equipment sales and service. So for the reasons I've outlined, our office recommends the application be rejected. However, should council approve the conditional use, the following conditions of approval are recommended. First, that conditional use approval be limited to the business proposed within its application, sale and servicing of equipment used in the environmental, utility, underground, and recycling industries. Any changes in use will require a new conditional use approval. Two, that the applicant obtain all required permits and approvals, including but not limited to those from the RRPD, RM of West St. Paul, and Manitoba Infrastructure. Three, a revised drainage plan for consolidated lots to be submitted to the RM and approved by the municipal engineer. Excuse me. Number four, that outdoor storage is in compliance with section 3.11 of the zoning bylaw, including being enclosed on all sides by a minimum 6-foot high solid or opaque wall or fence. 5, fencing or other required screening around exterior storage to be completed prior to occupancy permit being issued. And 6, and finally, the applicant/owner to receive approval from the RM office confirming elevation and landscape plans adhere to design and landscape guidelines applicable to the property through the development agreement. Landscape plans to include storage area and fencing. That's all I have for this application, and of course, would welcome any questions council has. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Planner. I'll go around the virtual table here for questions. Councillor Prague, any questions for the planner? Still on mute, sorry.
No questions for the planner at this time.
Thank you. Councillor Kleiber, any questions for the planner?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bichetti, any questions for the planner?
Yeah, I guess just more for some clarification. There was a lot of talk of exterior storage in this, in your part and the applicant's part, but nowhere in the advertised, I guess, cover page does it say anything about exterior storage. It says sales and servicing. We've had other applications come in and we've made them go back to reapply because it's got to have the exterior storage. We just finished a couple and they've got to come back for it. We denied the exterior storage. So I don't think this was clearly advertised to the people to really make a judgment on it, because all they would see is this and not a lot of the background information. So I'm just wondering why there was nothing put in there for exterior storage as it's been in other applications on the cover pages.
Yeah, so you're referring, I believe, to the public hearing notice that's posted on the property and also distributed to nearby property owners. So the Planning Act states that that notice needs only provide a summary of the application. Now, in some instances, specific uses are differentiated by whether they have outdoor storage or not. So just, for example, a contractor's establishment. There are separate use categories for contractor's establishment and contractor's establishment with outdoor storage. So that would be a scenario where on the public hearing notice, we would indicate the exterior storage. In this case, the applicants applied for the sort of umbrella category of any commercial use not listed, which could encompass outdoor storage. So the notice would meet the Planning Act requirements, and of course, if anyone wanted more information, they're welcome to contact our office to receive it. Again, the notice need only provide a summary of the application.
It's just kind of disturbing for me. You know, we're trying to be open with people when they see these public hearing notices, and some were putting in exterior storage, some were not. So for the normal everyday person that's not looking at this every day, not seeing it on there means to me it doesn't apply to this area. And reading all the different, you know, between the planning department and the applicant, it's saying yes, exterior storage is needed, no, it's not needed. So this is very unclear to me, and I don't think I'm very happy with not seeing the, you know, at least the intent of what is going to go on there for the public. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bichetti. Councillor Link, any questions for the planner?
Yes, the zoning to the east and the south is RS and RMF1.
That's correct.
So would you concur that homes that are going to go up in those areas could quite likely be two-story structures, and their view would include the storage area of these properties? And I concur with the concerns of Councillor Bichetti that we don't know what's going to be in those storage areas. But I'm thinking that it would not be advantageous for sales of homes that are nearby because of what their view would encompass.
So the maximum height in those two zones, the residential zones, is 35 feet. So that certainly could allow for two-story dwellings.
Okay, so they could be impacted negatively because of what they're looking out on. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions as well, just as a follow-up to comments from Councillor Bichetti and Councillor Link. I'm just wondering about that exterior storage and the advertisement of that. I know in the other ones that have come forward in automotive areas and things that we've looked at down on Capitolist, that's been advertised as requesting that exterior storage. So this one concerns me for the same reasons mentioned by Councillor Bichetti, that it was advertised as wanting to change something that looks like you guys have labeled heavy industrial, to consider it as a commercial. But every other business along there and any other residents have no idea that we're also contemplating exterior storage. What would be the process if this were to be re-advertised to include what they're asking for? What would be involved here? Would we table the public hearing, have it re-advertised so they don't have to pay? I'm just wondering what that process would look like.
I'm being careful of answering this because I don't know that there is a legal basis for requiring a re-advertisement. It's something that I would have to look into further if council wanted that done. Certainly, the typical process for advertising is we have the notices posted on the property 2 weeks in advance, as well as sent to property owners within a certain distance. I believe it's 100 meters of the properties. We send them that notice. So if there was a desire, in theory, it could be recirculated, but I would want to obtain a legal opinion as to whether that would be appropriate, given that, as I said, the current notice did meet the Planning Act requirements.
And I'm not trying to criticize you. What's concerning to me is that residents might have seen that notice, or business owners that are adjacent and in the area to this, seen that notice and not have any issue with having a commercial business next to them. And so they're not present at tonight's public hearing. They're not making comments in support or opposition because, I guess I'm okay with having a commercial use next to me, but that they might not be aware of, this is really asking council for two things here. That we're making a decision on, as you mentioned, whether or not we're okay with this not being considered an industrial use, and simultaneously whether we're okay with all this exterior storage. And this isn't how council's looked at these all along Capitalists so far. So I have concerns about fairness and what we're looking at and making sure that people are informed. So maybe I'll see what the will of council is on that one. I did just want to ask a question, and it might be more for the applicant, just in terms of where they're coming from. And I know that you are recommending us not approve this. Are they coming from an industrial park? Like, is this business currently, the pictures that you're showing, they are currently located within an industrial zone?
I'm not aware of the zoning on their current property in Winnipeg. That's perhaps something that the applicant could answer.
Okay. I think those are all my questions. I'm not sure what the will of council would be of, and maybe I'll go around the table and I'll start with Councillor Link and work our way around. Would we consider tabling this for the planner to get a legal opinion of whether we should be advertising that they're asking for exterior storage before proceeding? Councillor Link, what are your thoughts?
Well, I have several questions here for the applicant, and most of these questions are.
Can anyone else hear? I can't hear, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I just have to ask you to speak up.
I'm off mute. Can you hear me now? Okay. My questions to the applicant, for the most part, several of them I have concerning storage. So I'm not sure what to do here, Mayor. I would like the questions answered if possible now, and maybe council could come up with a decision tonight whether to approve or not.
Okay, thank you. I was just asking about the advertisement. Are we okay with the way that it's been advertised without including that we're looking at exterior storage for a vote on that? Are you okay with the way that it's been advertised?
It isn't clear because there's a lot of outdoor storage that we can see will be required.
So I'm just concerned of whether we continue on or whether we have the planner ask for a legal opinion on whether we should have advertised for that.
Could do.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bichetti, your thoughts?
I think I made it pretty clear. I don't like how it's been advertised. It's not clear. And if I didn't read all the background, even in the background, it's kind of confusing, but like Councillor Link, a lot of my questions were regarding the exterior storage and what it would look like through the cycle times that the applicant has been speaking about. So I'd like it to be clear for everybody. So.
Thank you. Councillor Kleiber, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think we can table it at any time. I would like to hear from the applicant. I think we're making some assumptions here. I don't know how much is outdoor and how much is not outdoor. So I would like to hear what the applicant has to say. And if that time we feel that there is a lot of outdoor, then we could table it then.
Thank you. Councillor Prague?
My thoughts are to listen to the applicant, hear you have to say, and from there then make a decision whether to table it or deny it. Let's hear what the applicant have to say. Just listening to the planner and the rest of the councillors, what was given, I wish I know what the applicant have in mind so I can make an informed decision. Thanks.
Thank you. So Councillor Kleiber wants to go ahead, listen to the applicant, Councillor Prague to the applicant, Councillor Bichetti, you're wanting to have just to be clear, wanting to continue or to have this advertised, re-advertised?
I'm willing to listen to the applicant just to clarify it all. So if there is more questions prior to asking if we do, recess it or whatever we're doing with it, that the questions are answered, I guess.
Okay. And I see Councillor Link nodding as well. My only concern is that anybody, I'm feeling bad for people that don't know what we're talking about and discussing. So my only concern is if we listen to the applicant and we proceed with the public hearing, it hasn't been properly advertised and residents are going to say, I would have listened and participated in that public hearing had I had the opportunity. So I'm a little bit concerned about proceeding and listening to the applicant and going through the whole process without this being correctly advertised about what we're talking about. I feel like this isn't transparent to our residents about what we're dealing with here today. But if it's the will of council to keep going and listening to the applicant, then we'll continue and we can always table partway through. Go ahead, Councillor Bichetti.
I think Councillor Kleiber had her hand up first and then I'll go after her.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Kleiber. No? Okay. Councillor Bichetti.
Can you just clarify that? So if we, just to make it clear, sorry, I missed a little bit there. So if we listen to the applicant, that means we've opened the public hearing and no further information would be able to be brought back if we, for clarification, that's. Oh, you're on mute.
Our public hearing is open. But if we continue with the process and listen to the applicant and listen to those who are in support and listen to those in opposition and those for information and people who would have participated or voiced their concern or support, knowing there's exterior storage as part of this, all those representations will already be done. So we might not have to close the public hearing when we're done. We could leave it open. But then all of that discussion for anyone interested in the exterior storage component of this, they would have missed that if they're interested in that part of this application. We'll have already done it. Oh, go ahead, Councillor Kleiber.
Well, I think that if the application was properly advertised, as far as people knew that this conditional use was coming up and they knew what it entailed, I think that if you actually read it, you would probably assume there'd be some kind of outdoor storage because it is sales and service. So I think that maybe we're overthinking it a little bit, because it has been advertised, and if people wanted to look into it and wanted to talk about it, they would have contacted us or the planner and said, I have concerns about this. Let me ask some questions. So it has been, as far as I know, properly advertised according to the rules. The planner doesn't seem to think that there's an issue or there is a rule that has been broken. But that's I guess we can just discuss that further, but I'll say this. There have been many applications in the past that haven't been properly advertised and have been listened to. So how far do we take this? How minute a detail do we have to use? I mean, I'll give you an example. Everybody hates this one because it's coming from me. Agricultural center versus a bus depot, right? No proper, there was no proper notification even to people that were 100 meters from it. So that's one thing. But to say we didn't capture every single thing on this application, I don't know. I think maybe let's listen to the applicant to see whether or not we're right about this. And if we are right about this, then we can step back and table it. If it is truly going to be a ton of outdoor storage, et cetera, and you feel that way, then we can step back and say, okay, you know what? Maybe we need to table this.
Thank you, Councillor Kleiber. Councillor Bichetti and then Councillor Pereg.
I can think of 2 or 3 that we've done in the last, several months that have come in as, contractors, establishments, production places that'll do service. And each one of those, we got on them about exterior storage. Exterior storage of pallets, equipment, anything that they're putting out there. And because it was not listed in their advertisement. So that's where I have a problem in this. It's just the consistency and who decides when it's on there and when it's not. It's just not clear. So, and I was not aware that, no one else would be able to register if it did come back to us, if it gets changed and added on there as exterior storage. So even if we recess it, or if we, at whatever point, you mean no one else can come back with when there's new information added to speak either way?
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Pereg, go ahead. I saw your hand up.
Well, this application was advertised. There was a package out when it was advertised. And if people read the application and they had concerns, they would have put in their concerns, just like all the applications that went out. If they read the package, they would know either way. That's my view on this.
My concern is if they read the package, it doesn't say other than in the list of conditions as condition number 4 that there's exterior storage. So I'm a little bit concerned, and Councillor Kleiber raised a great point about making sure there's proper notification. It turned into an ombudsman complaint. So should we proceed, given the past complaints that have come about from a lack of advertising? And we've had all these businesses come to us and actually have exterior storage listed on the notice. So, is this a time where we pause and have our planner go to legal to make sure, or do we just forge ahead? Go ahead, Councillor Kleiber.
I think we need to tread carefully here. And the reason that I say that is because the applicant can come back and say that we are that we may be stalling the procedure in order to gain opposition against him. So we have to be careful with that, because if we say, well, not everybody's had a say in this, not everybody knows it's exterior storage, so let's let everybody know so they can have their say in it. It has been advertised, so we have to be careful. There's a fine line here of transparency versus fairness as well. It can be construed a couple of different ways, so I think we have to be very careful here. And I would say that you can still listen to the applicant, and you can still table it if you feel that it is necessary.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bichetti, go ahead.
Planner, can you go to the first page, please? The application page, the page that what's been advertised. Do you have the public hearing notification?
I can certainly get it up if you give me just a moment here.
all I'm getting at is that's all that was advertised. How's a resident supposed to read the application? That's all that there was available to them on our through our West St. Paul, right there. So they don't see the background of the other, 20, 30 pages on that. That's what I'm getting at. So by reading that, I would be told that, it's a summary of what is going on, but nowhere it says anything to do with that. Thank you.
Councillor Link and then Councillor Kleiber.
Going around to seeing that point of view is stronger. There is no indication here of outdoor storage at all. Perhaps what we need to do is somehow, some residents are aware that the package gets advertised on Red River Planning District's site. And some people are not aware that that's where they can go to read up on this if they're interested. Perhaps we can avoid this problem in the future by somehow, I believe it's possible to have a link between our agenda and the public hearing site at Red River. We should maybe consider that. But yeah, I tend to agree now with Mayor Christian and Councillor Bisetti that this really advertisement isn't clear.
Councillor Kleiber, go ahead. Thank you, Councillor Link. Councillor Kleiber, go ahead.
Can the planner give me an example of an advertisement that would have advertised outdoor storage similar to this?
So in the use table, some uses are distinguished or separated in two parts: those that require outdoor storage and those that don't. An example is contractor's establishment. So there are separate line items for contractor's establishment and contractor's establishment with outdoor storage. So if it's the latter, then it would clearly state in the notice that exterior storage is part of the application.
So were you aware there would be outdoor storage here when the application came in?
Yes, it's very explicit in the applicant's.
So then why wasn't it put on there?
Because the notice only is a summary. As it states, as you can see on the bottom of the screen, for more information, anyone interested can contact the Red River Planning District. So
you don't have to be specific, is what you're saying?
No, I can confidently say that this notice meets the Planning Act requirements for notification.
Okay. And I don't know of any other, I don't recall any other applications that have gone to the finite detail of outdoor storage. Do you know of any that we have passed that have indicated outdoor storage, or have they always been a summary?
They've always been a summary. Sometimes that summary does state outdoor storage. For example, in the example that I mentioned, the contractor's establishment with outdoor storage, which again is a specifically listed line item in the bylaw, we would use that. Similar to how we specifically in this say commercially use not listed. Because
and
that's been applied for.
Yeah, and I can understand that being a contractor myself, there's a lot of stuff you would put outside as a contractor, which would not be limited to equipment. It would be materials, it would be all kinds of things. So I can understand why that would be in there for contractors. Okay, so basically what you said under the Planning Act, this meets the Planning Act.
Correct.
Thank you.
I still share the concerns of Councillor Link and Councillor Bisetti, and I'm wondering even just on the neighboring properties when we considered something more recently at 108, 1087 Capitolus, and it was advertised for exterior storage, that the public was fully informed that we were contemplating a storage container and exterior storage, and that many examples along Capitolus you have included in the advertisement and exterior storage. Thank you. Councillor Craig, go ahead.
So after listening to all of this, if we table this and the planner get the legal opinion on this and we advertise it, and then move forward. So we have all, the rest of the councillors have all the information in front of them.
That would be my preference if that ends up being the will of council. I want to make sure that our residents are fully informed, and I want this application to be fair in a way that it was for everyone else down Capitolist. So that is my preference. It would be the will of council if whether or not we do that. Go ahead, Councillor Prague.
My view on this, I don't want to deny somebody who want to bring their business to West St. Paul. I welcome business here, and I think let's table this matter for now so we can get all the rest of the information. So let's be fair to both sides, the applicant and the general public.
Thank you, Councillor Prague. Councillor Bichetti, are you okay with that?
I completely agree with Councillor Prague.
Okay, Councillor Link, are you okay with that? And Councillor Kleiber?
I think that the advertisement has been fair, and that if people had concerns, they could have come forward. So no, I don't agree with the tabling.
Thank you. So, Mr. Payton, it looks like the will of council is to table. I would need a resolution to table that then, to explore re-advertising. Or can we simply table it and request that you do re-advertise and include the exterior storage? Is that a request that we can make to make sure that our public is fully informed?
Well, the added element of this is that if council tables the application to a date that's not determined now, then the application needs to be re-advertised anyways.
Okay.
That being said, I will still be seeking a legal opinion as to whether for the re-advertisement that I should be amending this again. I think the concerns raised by Councillor Kleiber are legitimate, and so I'd want to receive a legal opinion before adding information to the notice and recirculating.
So if I heard you correctly, if we don't select a date that we table this for, you have to re-advertise, and you could include the outdoor storage, which then does not, we're not suggesting you're doing anything wrong. So I don't want you to get a wrong impression. We just want everybody to be fully informed of what's going on. So I support the comments that you're complying with the Planning Act. I'm definitely not accusing you of not complying. Just if we don't set a date, you could re-advertise and include that additional information and still be fully compliant with the act. And
that's correct, but again, I would be seeking a legal opinion as to whether it would be proper procedure to add information.
Okay.
Again, yeah.
Okay. So could you suggest a resolution wording for us that would help you proceed on this, a resolution wording on tabling for us? That be it resolved, the council table the public hearing, and would you prefer that we set a date or not set a date? That we table this to allow the planner to consult with legal and leave the date open? Would you prefer that wording?
I have no preference on the wording. Again, I don't believe this is not my recommendation to table. So if it's the will of council, then I would suggest put on the resolution whatever you would prefer to see.
Councillor Kleiber, go ahead.
Wow, tried to get that little hand down. I think we have to be very careful here. Again, I'm going to caution council, if there is no substantial exterior storage and you table this and it then comes back exactly the same, how will the applicant, who has not been given a voice and has not been given an opportunity to speak about exterior storage, what are the legalities of that, because you're denying them due process? So you have to be very careful here, because it might not be the case at all, and then you have tabled it and made it to be the case. Do you understand what I'm saying? So there is There could be some legal ramifications here.
Thank you, Councillor Kleiber. Mr. Planner, are we able to table any public hearing for any reason? We're requesting additional information from you. Would that be a valid and sound reason to request legal opinion on this?
The council is certainly able to table an application. I don't know that I am qualified to comment on the reasons that it would be tabled.
Thank you. All right, I think that we're okay to move ahead. We have 4 members of council in support of tabling and 1 not supportive in terms of a resolution.
He said you might want to adjourn, might be the proper way to do it.
Okay, maybe that's the way to do that. To ask our municipal legislative officer, do you have a suggestion and recommendation for me on how we could proceed with this?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We would suggest that the public hearing be adjourned at this time, not tabled, would be the language. And what the potential resolution could look at like is be it resolved that council do hereby adjourn the public hearing and resume the regular meeting of council. And council could decide whether they wish to set a date or to leave the date unspecified at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Shaw. I'll go around the table and see if we, or go ahead, Councillor Bichetti. We'll start with you. Are you okay with that resolution?
If we adjourn it, that means we're closing it. See, it's,
Ms. Shaw, are we closing it by adjourning it?
No, you would either close your public hearing or adjourn it. You would table a resolution on the decision.
Okay.
Do you see the distinction?
It's another word for tabling. We're tabling it and coming back to it. Adjourning means we're not closing it. We're leaving it open to come back and deal with the matter. Is that correct?
That is correct. The public hearing will not be closed. It will just be adjourned for this evening, and it will be reopened at a later date.
Go ahead, Councillor Bichetti.
are we adding a reason in there why we're doing that? And for what, like what we wanted more of, or?
I don't know if we need to include the reason if we give direction to Mr. Payton, but Ms. Shaw, what is your suggestion?
I would suggest not including a reason in the resolution.
Thank you. Councillor Bichetti, would you want to see a date or not include a date and have it re-advertised?
Whatever is the norm, how the RM staff would decide that.
Okay. Councillor Link?
I think our planner, Mr. Payton, wants time to consult with a lawyer. So what time frame would you suggest, Mr. Payton? To give you time to do that and subsequently carry out maybe some changes or not?
Well, a re-advertisement would be 2 weeks minimum. And to obtain a legal opinion, I think it's reasonable to allow for several weeks. So I would suggest, if it's the will of council, to adjourn the hearing. And again, this is not something that I am recommending, but if that is the will of council, then I would suggest a month would be a reasonable time if it's the will of council to set a specific date.
So May's planning meeting probably?
Could potentially be April. I believe there's planning items coming on the April 22nd meeting, but you may want to confirm with your administration about the agendas for those meetings, as I know there are already items slated for them.
Okay, to be safe then, May's planning meeting would be safe, probably, for inclusion.
As far as I know, there's one item slated for the May meeting, but again, you might want to confirm with your administration that agenda would be suitable.
So maybe we leave the date open and then get confirmation from Ms. Elias and then set a date and re-advertise is what I'm hearing. Councillor Kleiber, go ahead.
So I know that we received this agenda at least, 2 days ago? Would that be correct?
72 hours. Yep.
72 hours. So I guess my question is, in the 72 hours, obviously there's some members of a council that identified this issue. So why wouldn't it have been reported to you and spoken with the applicant, spoken with Mr. Patton, and removed from the agenda, and instead of going through all of this? It is like, I'm just wondering why that wasn't done, or can it not be done?
I don't think that that would have been appropriate for Councillor Bichetti to try and pressure Mr. Payton to remove something from the agenda. So I think that this is being done in a transparent way, and that the public can see the discussion that we have. If things are of concern or identified, we're making those decisions to move forward or not move forward as a council.
Yes, but Councillor Bichetti could have contacted you and identified what he thought was the issue, and you're in charge of the agenda. Then you, as a mayor, could you not have contacted Mr. Patton and identified the issue and get advice at that point? Like, I'm just saying, in the future, maybe we need to identify these things ahead of time instead of getting to a public meeting and saying, okay, now we're not going to listen to these people. I have serious concerns about this from a legal standpoint, because we haven't even listened to the applicant and we're making an assumption. So I don't know how fair that is to him or to them or whoever it is. And, you know, are we going to be doing that with every application that comes across our table and say, well, we don't know if you're telling us everything, so you know what, we're going to table you. We're going to make an assumption and we'll see on a later date. What would be the difference?
We're asking for additional information. We're not making assumptions about the application. This may be a glowing and great application and have full support of every member of council, but the concerns that we've raised are just about making sure our public is notified and asking our planner to provide legal advice. In terms of controlling the agendas, these are planning items that come through Red River Planning that are added to the agenda, discussed with our planner, Ms. Elias here in West St. Paul, and added to an agenda. So I don't have veto rights where I tell people who are bringing things forward that you can't put these on applications. So I'm really proud that we're having full discussion, full transparency with our residents in our community. This is a discussion that the applicant should see, that anyone participating and watching the meeting should see. This is how decision making is done, and sometimes items are tabled, and that is our right as a council. So I don't believe in pushing this behind closed doors. I think we're doing it properly. We're having a discussion, and if it's the will of council to adjourn, that is the right of council. Councillor Bichetti, go ahead. You have your hand up.
First of all, I don't think I'm saying to the applicant that I don't believe what he's telling me. His letter, or the applicant's letter and all that, was very self-explanatory. I just don't believe what has been put out to a resident that doesn't deal with this every day has been clarified properly. And to say that we had 72 hours on this, we also went from a Monday night budget meeting to a Tuesday night listening to a public hearing for our planning department, which could impact us very much, to yesterday to a budget meeting, to a recreation meeting that I finished at 9 o'clock last night, so I've been reading this for 3 days, and I went through this one 3 times today. As you, Councillor Kleiber, I work all day too, so we're limited. Some weeks we're busier than others, and I do not feel like I shouldn't be speaking to anyone once there's an application put out on this. So that's just to clarify for myself. Thanks.
I think we've had discussion on it. If everybody's okay, I'll go to you, Councillor Prague, but if everyone's okay, then we'll read a resolution to adjourn, because it sounds like council is prepared to go in that direction. Councillor Prague, go ahead.
I just want to get this clear. I'm not against the applicant or anything. Once the more information is given forward, we table it and come forward with it. I think, Council, we should understand that you want transparency. Then let's table it and make sure this application come before us as soon as possible. Because we're going to stall it now and it comes forward as soon as possible. So there's not much delay in it.
Agreed. Good points, Councillor Pereg. All right, Ms. Shaw, can you read a resolution for us to put you on the hot spot? It sounds like we'll leave the date open and that way Ms. Elias can determine where we can slot this in amongst other planning items.
All right, council could consider the following resolution. Be it resolved that council do hereby adjourn the public hearing and resume the regular meeting of council.
Thank you, Ms. Shaw. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Bichetti, seconded Councillor Link. Any further discussion?
Recorded vote, please.
Request for a recorded vote from Councillor Kleiber. Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Payton. We're giving you some extra challenges tonight. Thank you. We have a subdivision. So the next, we do not have a public hearing for a subdivision, but we have a subdivision on Blackdale Road, an existing road. So there is no public hearing, but you're going to walk us through this application.
That's correct. So thank you, Madam Mayor. So this subdivision application, as you mentioned, no public hearing involved. That's because as per your bylaw, as well as the Planning Act, no public hearings are required where no public roads are being proposed. So this is file number S21-2882. The proposal is to subdivide a farmstead, a yard site, from the remainder of an agricultural property at 1549 Blackdale Road. The size of the yard site to be subdivided is 6.679 acres. The remainder, the residual property, would be 101.751 acres approximately. And the zoning on the property is A80 agricultural. So if you take a look at the concept map, you can see, rather the context map, you can see that the property is near the northern boundary of the RM. As I mentioned, it is zoned A80, and it's located on the east side of Blackdale Road. And on this map, I've just generally located the boundary of the proposed lot. Excuse me, just to, as I mentioned, 6.679 acres in size. So the red boundary there indicates where the proposed lot generally would be located. Again, the property is zoned A80. There are some rural residentially zoned properties directly to the north. So in addition to being zoned A80, the property is designated as resource and agriculture in the development plan. So what that means is long-term, these lands are reserved for resource and agricultural related uses. Typically, new lots in this zone and with this designation need to be 80 acres minimum in size. However, there are certain circumstances identified in the development plan in which the creation of a smaller lot may be considered. The relevant policy for this particular application is policy 4.1.14.1, which permits subdivision of a farmstead in order to allow a retiring farmer to continue residing on the property. Configuration of the existing yard should be considered. The bounds of the proposed parcel are not to exceed an established yard site or be wasteful of agricultural lands. If we take a look at the applications, rather the applicant's subdivision application map, again, it shows the proposed lot is located. And if you look at the closer view on the right side of the image, you can see that the established tree line is where the proposed boundary, southern boundary of the lot is located. So we would consider this application to be in compliance with the development plan policy, and we do not believe that the proposed lot would be wasteful of agricultural lands, and it does appear to align with the established yard site. That being said, the zoning bylaw allows there's a limit on how large a property created through this development plan policy can be, and that's a 4-acre limit. Again, the applicant's proposing a lot that's 6.679 acres in size. So it complies with the development plan policy, but a variance would be required in order to allow for that parcel that's again greater than the 4 acres maximum permitted under the zoning bylaw. And I just want to point out that Manitoba Agriculture and Resource Development had no concerns with this application, citing again that development plan policy that allows for subdivision of a farmstead. And so our office and both the province consider this to be compliant with the development plan. Should council wish to approve the application, our office recommends the following conditions be placed. First, that the applicant/owner submits confirmation in writing from the CAO that taxes have been paid, applicable development levies have been paid, and a development agreement has been entered into to address the following, but not limited to, development fees, servicing, and drainage. Number 2, that the applicant/owner submits written confirmation from Manitoba Hydro and Centra Gas that an easement agreement has been entered into. And third and finally, that the applicant/owner obtains all required variances. That's all I have for this application, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Planner. I'll go to Councillor Kleiber first, as this is in her ward. Councillor Kleiber, any comments, questions for the planner?
No, I think it's pretty self-explanatory, and I fully understand people wanting to retire from their farming and to have a separate homestead, and then, you know, possibly rent out their land or to another farmer, or you know, it's a common practice. So I'm sorry to see them retire, but we all got to retire sometime, I guess. It's pretty straightforward application.
Thank you, Councillor Kleiber. Councillor Prague, any questions for the planner?
No questions, thank you. It's pretty straightforward.
Thank you. Councillor Bichetti, any questions for the planner?
No, it's pretty straightforward. Just more of a comment. You can see why they picked that 6.67 acres, because if they would cut it down to 4, you know, you're leaving a little sliver, which makes it even harder with that little jolt in. So yeah, I have no problem with this. You can see they use it for their approach and their tree line. So that's good. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Link, any questions for the planner?
No questions. Thank you, Mr. Planner.
I have no questions as well. Thank you. All right, I will read the resolution. Be it resolved that Council of the Rural Municipality of West St. Paul, under Section 125(1) of the Planning Act, approves subdivision application S21-2882 for the property located at 1549 Blackdale Road to subdivide a 6.679 acre lot from an existing 108.43 acre parcel, leaving a residual of 101.751 acres subject to the following conditions. 1, applicant owner submits confirmation in writing from the Chief Administrative Officer of the municipality that A, taxes on the land to be subdivided for the current year, plus any arrears have been paid or arrangements satisfactory to council have been made. B, payment of any applicable development levies have been paid. And C, a development agreement has been entered into to address the following but not limited to development fees, servicing, a drainage lot grading plan to be prepared by a qualified engineer and submitted prior to any development to the satisfaction of the municipality, and to ensure that the proposed property does not drain into or impede drainage from neighboring properties. 2, applicant owner submits written confirmation from Manitoba Hydro and Centra Gas Manitoba Inc. that an easement agreement or agreements has been entered into with Manitoba Hydro and Centra Gas Manitoba Inc. with respect to existing and or future facilities associated with the subdivision, and a plan of easement as required by the Real Property Act has been provided. Registration of this agreement with the included as a condition of final certificate of approval, contact information listed. 3, applicant owner to obtain all required variances. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Link, seconded Councillor Prague. Any further discussion?
But I have a
Councillor
recorded vote.
A request for a recorded vote. Thank you, Councillor Kleiber. Councillor Bichetti, go ahead.
I'm just looking through here. They're living there right now, right? Just to clarify. Is this in the sensitive area?
This is in the Rockwood sensitive area, yes.
So right now they have potable water through a well. I'm just trying to read all these and I'm just for clarification, they have existing well and everything there?
Yeah, so as shown on the map before you, they've got a well and a septic field on the property.
Councillor Kleiber?
All the properties on Rushman Road and down from Blackdead, they all have well water. There's only one home that's further west that had a problem with the Rockwood water. Other than that, everything is well, and everything as far as drinking water is fine.
Yeah, I was just clarifying because I'm not exactly sure 100% where this is. Thank you.
Yeah.
So as a follow-up question, Mr. Planner, if they were to sell off after subdividing, they would have to disclose that they're in the Rockwood sensitive zone. Is that correct?
I'm not aware if there's any sort of requirement to disclose that to a future property owner. There is a requirement for a development agreement in the current resolution. Council could require that the development agreement stipulate that it's in the Rockwood sensitive area. That would ensure that any future purchaser will be made aware.
Thank you. Councillor Kleiber, go ahead.
It would be the same as Fulshire or any of the other streets that are in that area. They would have the same type of advertisement. So, you know, you would follow that same application process.
Sometimes I'm just worried because we definitely have agents and sellers informing residents of one thing, like you're going to be hooked up to wastewater within 2 years, and it's not happening, right? That, you know, it's 20 years or my life away before sewer is ever going to be near some of these places. And agents are saying, you know, in a couple of years, you're going to be hooked up to wastewater. So even though the agents should have a responsibility to be providing correct information, we just want to make sure everybody's fully informed when they're coming into our community on a new lot. So, but thank you. That's something that administration can contemplate as part of the development agreement, and then that would come back to council for further discussion.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mayor. It is a very difficult thing, though, because as you know, we had a couple on one of the streets come to one of our coffee times and were quite upset about a few things. And we as council can't regulate what the real estate agents are doing. It's unfortunate because sometimes people come to our community and they're just not fully aware of what they're buying into. So I don't know how we can address that, but no, I understand what you're saying.
With no further comments then and a request for a recorded vote, I will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Planner, for your help tonight on the two applications. Thank you. I'm going to send you off with a bit of work on the first one, but thank you very much. And for your patience, as always.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
we didn't have a view for the recorded vote. Was that unanimous?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, we will keep going. We are on item 7.1, confirmation of the minutes, Committee of the Whole, March 9th. Be it resolved that the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting of Council held on March 9th, 2021 be approved. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Kleiber, seconded Councillor Bichetti. Any discussion on those minutes? Hearing and seeing none, I will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. 7.2, regular meeting of March 11th. Be it resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of Council held on March 11th, 2021 be approved. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Kleiber, seconded Councillor Prague. Any discussion on those minutes? Seeing and hearing none, I will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. Thank you. We have 10.1, accounts. Be it resolved that vouchers 41970 to 41998 as listed and totaling $1,847,689.20 and February Visa payment totaling $31,439.86 be approved as presented. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Pereg, seconded Councillor Bichetti. Any discussion regarding the accounts? Councillor Link?
Thank you to the CAO for answering my question. There's one answer there that I think that he was answering quickly. This is this was for check 41975, City of Winnipeg, over $900,000. And the answer about that was, this is our annual, we collect. Our annual, I wasn't sure about what we collect. I'm sorry. What are we collecting here from homeowners all year and pay at the end to the city?
Yes, we're a customer of wastewater for the city of Winnipeg. So all our homeowners are not customers, so they pay us. We have that money that we keep all year, and then at the end of the year, we balance off and pay them a final sum. So in this case, this year, that's the sum we pay. So customers of West St. Paul are our residents, and West St. Paul is the customer of the city of Winnipeg.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing and hearing none, I will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. We have 14.1 2020 AMM Annual Convention Resolution Responses. So every year, if residents are looking at our agendas and wondering what this is, every year resolutions are put forward from the Association of Manitoba, which we are a part of, and those residents go to various departments within the provincial government. And I'm pleased to see within the last few years that they've provided a written response to the different resolutions so that we, as all the members, can see the responses. So this is on the agenda for our community to see that. What are the issues that we are lobbying the provincial government to address? And what is their response to us when, as all 137 municipalities, we are lobbying them? So thank you for including that on the agenda, and our residents are able to see that. 14.2, a funding opportunity to improve Bell MTS connectivity in your community. I think this is an excellent thing that we can be a part of. Councillor Link, go ahead.
I apologize, Mayor Christian, but I had some questions regarding the AMM resolutions. And may I ask them?
Sure, I'm not sure I'm going to be the person to answer them, but go ahead.
Well, I suspect our CAO, through you for the CAO.
Councillor Link, we're having a lot of trouble hearing you. You're very muffled.
Okay, I'll speak up. All right. I am looking at Resolution 17-2020, which is snow removal agreements. Does the rural municipality of West St. Paul have a snow removal agreement with MI to maintain any provincial roads in West St. Paul? If so, which roads or portions of roads? That's the first question I have.
Okay, I will direct that to the CAO. Mr. CAO.
No, we had no agreement.
Thank you. The next one was regarding rail crossings. It's Resolution 2020. There is federal funding that may cover up to 80% of eligible costs related to improving safety or closing. That is in regard to private grade crossings. do the RRMs eligible for any federal funding related to improving the safety of at-grade crossings?
No, we were not eligible.
Okay. The next one is regarding Resolution 25, 2020, which is about weed control. There is a new highway weed control agreement that is yet to be ratified. Will the RM be considering entering into a voluntary weed control agreement with the province? They're forecasting funds to be available to assist with weed control along provincial highways and designated roads. And I'm thinking, well, Pipeline's a provincial road, and part of Grassmere, and there's some other provincial highways or roads in West St. Paul that could be included. So will the RM be considering entering into a voluntary weed control agreement with the province? And you'll be lucky to
I have
know
not seen any data from the province yet.
nothing, just this resolution, hey? You
Yes.
weren't aware of this pending agreement or pending opportunity then? Okay, you'll be happy to know that's the end of my questions.
Thank you, Councillor Link. Weeds are definitely an issue that we'd like to see. So our weed tender has gone out and was advertised in the Selkirk Record earlier, many weeks earlier than we normally do, because we want to get on top of that. So thank you to our CAO for getting that out there and advertising it and getting it out early so we can address it. If there's more information coming on this working group, it sounds like they're not making any decisions yet, but creating a working group. So if we can hear about that working group and they're trying to address weeds in the highway ditches, that'd be fantastic. I don't think our residents should pay for it. So if they want to get on their highways and their ditches, get at it. If we have to have an agreement with them where our residents pay for it, I don't think so. That's just my opinion. All right. So I didn't need a resolution on that. 14.2, funding opportunity to improve Bell MTS connectivity in your community. Everyone's had an opportunity to read this letter. This is really great news. We've got lots of areas of our community where people aren't happy with connectivity. And for us to be able to take advantage of this and have Bell MTS reach out to our CAO to submit a letter, this is awesome. I'll go around the table. Councillor Clyburn, go ahead.
Can you guys hear me? Sometimes if I have to lower the hand. So in my ward, we have this connectivity problem, and it's because we are not high density. We have bigger lots, and some of us are 1.5 acres, whereas right across the street at Billingham Row and other areas, they have high-speed internet. In fact, I have a high-speed fiber optics right in front of my house, but I'm not allowed to tap into it because it's a dedicated line. I would also like to say that I am exploring, because as council knows, I've had great difficulty with Zoom. I'm exploring another service, which is a fairly new one, and I'm going to report back to council how that's going to work, and hopefully. It was in the Selkirk Record. I don't know if anybody saw it. There was an article in the Selkirk Record promoting this service. So it's been working at remote locations where there isn't the ability to have fiber optics and where we're all on dial-up. So hopefully I'm going to give it a try. And if it works for me, then I'll contact the CAO and council, and you'll see better Zoom for me, but I think it'd be something that I don't know if we can promote one company over another one, but in order to get our residents happy and connected, we can certainly look at that service if it works really as well as they say.
Thank you, Councillor Kleiber. Councillor Link, any comments on the Bell MTS letter?
I'm in favor of cooperating and directing the administration to write a letter that indicates that council supports Bell MTS's efforts to get the government, the federal grant to extend the services to areas which are poorly serviced now. Do we know, so I'm in favor of this. I think we should write a letter. Do we know who has access and who doesn't? Which areas in our RM have good access? Here on Toshak, we do. I know Councillor Kleiber does not. Do we know, do we have a map of those areas or information about those areas that don't have the good service?
I think that might be something for a good discussion at a committee of the whole. Either what we know or what Bell MTS can tell us about where they would plan to extend. So what they've included here is that they see a real potential to expand fiber, all fiber broadband network into your community using, applying for Government of Canada funds for it. So I think that maybe at a committee of the whole meeting, if we can either get information that they have done an assessment or that we know. For myself personally, it's just calls from residents, right, of areas that we know where people are calling us saying, you know, I'm a gamer and my games aren't working. I'm having trouble. So I 100% sympathize, and the trouble that Councillor Kleiber has on Zoom, I 100% sympathize. So if we can bring this in, this could really be ideal to take advantage of government funding, but through a private company, because to have local improvement districts and have our residents pay to try and have us run fiber and oversee it is something really not cost effective. So if a private company has identified that our community is good to expand in and get some money from the feds, how great is that?
So, Madam Mayor, are we going to write a resolution tonight that is in support of Bell, as they have asked in this letter? They've asked for a letter of support.
I'm not sure if we need a resolution on it, or the CAO writes letters all the time if we're okay, you know, that a letter goes off on this. I'm not sure that we need a resolution. It's on here just now as information. I think it's a good thing to do, so I'm not sure we need a resolution. Thank you. Councillor Bichetti, any comments, questions? Thank you. Councillor Prague, any comments, questions?
Could everybody get good internet? And just as on the news all over the place, Bell is merging with Rogers, and they plan to move more up west, more interconnection up west. It's a big merger, $26 billion. They're merging together to form just Rogers. And most of the services is coming out west. That's my few cents.
Yeah, it's great news. And if this goes through and they get the funding from the federal government, then it is no cost to our residents. They can deal directly with the private service provider. So that's fantastic. All right, our next item is 15.1, 2019 financial, final audited financial statements. We've looked at this at Committee of the Whole and seen the letter of completion. So this is coming back just for a resolution. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West St. Paul accept the 2019 final audited financial statements as presented by the Exchange Group Chartered Accountants LLP. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Kleiber, seconded Councillor Prague. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. We have no other items. We're going to have a resolution to go in camera. I will read the resolution. Be it resolved that in accordance with section 152.3 of the Municipal Act, Council do now move in camera to discuss a report of the Ombudsman and legal matters. And further, be it resolved that in accordance with Section 83(1)D of the Municipal Act, any issues that are discussed are kept confidential until discussed at a regular meeting of
Pardon me,
council.
Madam Mayor.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Ms. Shaw, we're not discussing a ombudsman.
I
Right.
apologize. That needs to be removed from your resolution.
No problem. We'll take that out. So we are now moving in camera to discuss a legal matter and
It would both be legal matters, Madam.
thank you. Be it resolved that in accordance with Section 83(1)D of the Municipal Act, any issues that are discussed are kept confidential until discussed at a regular meeting of council. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Bichetti, seconded. Councillor Kleiber, any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. All right. If
We had
Brian?
we had a request for, sorry, Madam Mayor, we had a request for a 10-minute break.
Yep, I was going to suggest that. If are we not live? Have we got, Brian got us not live. If we could take is 10 minutes enough, or do people want a 15-minute break to get a drink, go to the washroom? 10? 10 it is. You win. Back in 10 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, we're good to go.
Right, so thank you for your patience. In camera, we discussed City of Selkirk public hearing regarding withdrawing from Red River Planning District. And for item 19.3.2, I will turn that over to the CAO and MLO.
MLO Laney Shaw will be reading out the resolutions for the code of conduct.
Thank you, Mr. CAO and Council. The first resolution we have this evening, whereas a complaint against Councillor Kleiber was filed under Code of Conduct for Members of Council Bylaw 2020-10, and whereas the Council of the Rural Municipality of West St. Paul passed Resolution 2020-575 to permit the complaint that alleged inappropriate behaviors as defined in Code of Conduct for Members of Council Bylaw 2020-10 occurring after October 26, 2020 be investigated. And whereas the province of Manitoba provides a list of investigators based on provincially provided criteria, and People First HR Services was retained to undertake the investigation. And whereas the investigator, People First HR Services, delivered a final detailed investigation report along with recommendations dated March 9th, 2021, and relying on sections 7.1, 7.2, 7.3b, 7.6a, c, e, and f, 7.7a, b, c, e, and f1 of Code of Conduct Members for Council Bylaw 2020-10, found that Councillor Kleiber did contravene the Rural Municipality of West St. Paul Code of Conduct Bylaw 2020-10. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Rural Municipality of West St. Paul, having reviewed and considered the investigator's report and recommendations at an in-camera council meeting, hereby affirm the finding that Councillor Kleiber did contravene the Code of Conduct for Members of Council Bylaw 2020-10. Is there a mover for the resolution?
I'll move it, and I'd like a recorded vote, please.
Seconder? And there is a recorded vote. I will call for the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you. That resolution is carried. We will have a second resolution this evening. Whereas a complaint against Councillor Kleiber was filed under Code of Conduct for Members of Council Bylaw 2020-10, and whereas the Council of the Rural Municipality of West St. Paul passed Resolution 2020-575 to permit the complaint that alleged inappropriate behaviors as defined in the Code of Conduct for Members of Council Bylaw 2020-10 occurring after October 26, 2020 be investigated. And whereas the province of Manitoba provides a list of investigators based on provincially provided criteria, and People First HR Services was retained to undertake the investigation. And whereas the investigator, People First HR Services, delivered a final detailed investigation report along with recommendations dated March 9th, 2021, and relying on sections 7.1, 7.2, 7.3b, 7.6a, c, e, f, 7.7a, b, c, e, and f1 of Code of Conduct for Members Council Bylaw 2020-10 found that Councillor Kleiber did contravene the Rural Municipality of West St. Paul Code of Conduct Bylaw 2020-10. And whereas the Council of the Rural Municipality of West St. Paul has affirmed that Councillor Kleiber did contravene the Code of Conduct for Members of Council Bylaw 2020-10, and whereas the investigation by People First HR Services recommended that Council impose 3 sanctions that reflect the nature of the Code of Conduct contraventions as per the Code of Conduct for Members of Council Bylaw 2020-10. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Rural Municipality of West St. Paul, having considered the investigation report, the recommendations of People First HR Services and Section 10.1 of the Code, impose the following sanctions upon Councillor Kleiber in accordance with the Code of Conduct for Members of Council Bylaws 2020-10, sections 10(2)(c), D, and I. 1, that Councillor Kleiber be required to attend and be responsible for the costs, rather than the RM of West St. Paul, a training and coaching session as recommended by People First HR Services within 30 days. Upon completion of the training and 2, upon completion of the training and coaching session, Councillor Kleiber, applying these learnings, provides a sincere written apology to Mayor Christian wherein she acknowledges and accepts responsibility for her behaviors within 30 days. And 3, suspend Councillor Kleiber's power, duty, or function as a member of council for a period of 7 days, beginning at 12:01 a.m. on April 5th, 2021. Is there a mover for this resolution?
We'll move and recorded vote, please.
And a seconder? And we have a recorded vote. I'll call for the question. All those in favor?
Wait a minute, sorry.
Discussion.
No, I had my hand up.
My apologies, Councillor Kleiber.
Sorry, I didn't mean to yell, but I didn't want the vote to go on without a comment. I'm going to say, as a councillor, I will continue to speak the truth as I know it and to advocate for all residents. I will draw council's attention to the Municipal Act on the Code of Conduct, section 84.1.4. To be approved, the number of members who must affirm the resolution to sanction a member is the majority of all members of council plus 1. I agree with the recorded vote. Thank you.
Councillor Link.
Thank you. I have considered the investigators' recommendations and report earnestly and seriously. I believe that all members of council now have made changes to how they communicate with one another as a result of having to deal with these numerous code of conduct complaints. Changes have been made, and I see no need to impose sanctions. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Councillor Brussetti.
Can we get some clarification on what Councillor Kleiber was saying in the bylaw?
We don't have any item in the bylaw like that.
You don't
Our
have any
bylaw,
voting in the
which is
bylaw either.
From the code of conduct like from the province, we don't have that.
So the voting goes by the municipal code. And I have confirmation from the minister's office on that. And the code is 84.1.4. And if Ms. Shaw would like to look that up, she can confirm it.
Madam Mayor.
I would just like to say that I respect that a third-party investigation has been done at a cost of $8,000 to the taxpayers. I respect that that was approved by council to move forward and have an independent investigation done. All of the interviews that took place as part of that. I have been committed to creating a safe work environment in the different team building sessions that the taxpayers have also paid for to have us work together and get along. And it's concerning that the report has found and council has affirmed that violations of the code of conduct have taken place with significant impact, not only to myself, but to members of staff and other members of council. It is with a heavy heart that I will vote in favor of the sanctions recommended by a third party reviewed by legal, and I can only hope that moving forward behavior improves to make sure that we have a safe work environment for all.
Well, we did vote on sending this to an investigator. The majority of council did. And we did work, we did all agree to work with the code of conduct. So I believe that, you know, a third party has come in at a expense to the taxpayers. So I believe voting on this and following the code of conduct this is being true to it. So thank you.
Councillor Bragg?
Well, we have a code of conduct in place, and we, as public figures, have to respect one another. I always said that. We have to know what we're saying, what we are writing, respect one another. We have staff, and workplace harassment is not going to cut it in modern times anymore. It's not going to cut it. We have to respect people. We may all have different opinions, but respect one another. Respect one. I always say that we're all humans. We can get along. It's not difficult. Just respect one another. And I hope it went to a third party. It came at $8,000 cost behind it, taxpayers' money. And now the third party investigator whose arm's length is giving his decision. And we have to respect his decision. He's arm's length from this council. He had to review the evidence before he came to this conclusion. That's my comments.
Okay, so the resolutions were carried. We're going to end the meeting for tonight.
Have we confirmed the majority plus one on the sanctions?
Have the vote on that?
The vote has to take place.
Oh.
Yes, but Ms. Lane, Ms. Shaw, can you confirm what I've read about the sanctions from the Code of Conduct of Municipal Act?
Well, we have a bylaw and we're not stating it. I'm going to ask Lainey to carry forward with the vote.
Well, it is crucial because the vote can be carried or defeated based on what it should be, and it comes under the Municipal Act.
It will have to be challenged.
No, it will not have to be challenged because it's under the Municipal Act, and now you're not following the Municipal Act for the Code of Conduct. And I can
We're
send you an email
following our
right now
bylaw
from the
as,
policymaker and from the
as
minister's
we
office
accepted, we
that
used the
definitely
province's
states.
bylaw. We've put that into
Why are you
place here.
interrupting me, sir? I was speaking. I have an email from the minister's office and from the policymaker that this is what the vote is. These are the votes. The sanction is majority plus one. And if you don't have it, it's defeated. Now you're not allowing me proper process. You can go on to the Municipal Act right
Mayor
now.
Christian?
This is not something that was discussed in camera. We have a code of conduct bylaw. Everybody's had an opportunity to read that. And we have a code of conduct bylaw that was supplied to us by the province of Manitoba. And that is something you can discuss after, but this was not something raised in camera and should have been discussed when everybody on council had an opportunity to discuss that.
No, because it
I
needs
really
to.
want to protect the process in terms of confidentiality of the report and what that talks about. And I'm not sure that this is appropriate to be getting into detail on that. I think
No,
those.
and I'm not getting into detail. This is your bylaw
My
does not
recommendation,
address
we can
voting.
Continue and move ahead.
Your bylaw does not address the vote on the sanctions. The sanction is directed by the Municipal Act. And you're not following it if you don't follow that.
We have a mover and a seconder. And did someone ask for a recorded vote?
Councillor Link also wanted to speak.
Do you want to ask for the vote, Lainey?
I believe Councillor Link had something to say.
Well,
Councillor Link, and then we're going to move forward.
I cannot see in the code of conduct, our code of conduct, where it talks about the vote on sanctions. But the Municipal Act does address the vote on sanctions. And it's says majority plus one, and I believe the Municipal Act overrides our local code of conduct in that area.
Okay, I'm going to, Mayor Kristen, and then we'll move forward.
Yeah, I would just say it's confusing because our previous code of conduct had that in the sanctions, majority plus one, but the new code of conduct that they've sent to all of the municipalities does not have that in the code of conduct bylaw that our municipality passed. So we made no changes to that bylaw. That is directly from the province. So our previous code of conduct had majority plus one. Our current bylaw directly from the province does not specify that, but you know, I respect there are different opinions on this.
We need to go to a lawyer on this.
That is not, yeah, and this is not an opinion, this is the act. And so if you're not following the act, then there's a problem.
I'm going to ask Lainey to call for the vote here and then we'll move forward for the night.
And I'll just say this to council, I will not respect the sanctions if you're not going to follow the Municipal Act. The Municipal Act says majority plus one.
Thank you, council. I will call for the vote. All those in favor? And those opposed? Thank you.
That item is carried.
No, it's not.
Can I have a mover to adjourn the meeting, please? Moved by Councillor Buschetti, second Councillor Prague. All those in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. Thank you. Good night.